What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Life Warrior Podcast. I told y'all yesterday that we were going to have Deb on to finish up her Life Warrior story. And so here she is. We finished off last time, and I don't think we recorded this part, but you talking about some pretty cool things, some out of body experience kind of stuff, and which I'm anxious to hear more about. But we finished off with you and your man Ron, right? And how y'all met and all of that, and how that kind of altered the course of your life. And so you've been through a lot of trauma already in a short period of time.
Yeah.
And I remember you saying that really wasn't really the worst or the most life altering. So, man, I don't know how that could be possibly, but, um, so, yeah, so let's just kick it off there. You and Ron and let's finish the second half if we can.
All right. So, at 18, I got pregnant, and a few months later, 3 months later, I got married to Ron, and we moved to Maryland, where he was from. And of course, we're young. I'm turning 19 and he's 19 and we're dirt poor, and so we didn't live in the best neighborhood, but we were making it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so on September 16th, 1989, I have this tremendous dread feeling in my gut, and I can't explain it. It's just overpowering me. And I begged Ron not to go to work that night because he worked night shift. And he's like, babe, I got to go to work. We got to pay our rent. We got to keep a roof over our heads. And I was like, you're right. But I was thinking like a fire might happen, something bad. And I couldn't explain it. So I decided to stay fully dressed. I had my sneakers on and everything. And I had my 9-month-old son in my arms. And I slept on the couch. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, I wake up to cold metal on the temple of my head. It's a gun. And somebody had broke in, and he was pushing it on my head over and over again. Get up. And in my mind, the first thought was, oh, here we go again. So he puts the gun on my son's head, and he says,
Oh, wow.
If the baby wakes up, I'll kill him. And he proceeds to climb on top of me. And I said, the baby, it's going to wake up, duh. Like, I was agitated but scared at the same time. And so he pulled me to the floor. And my son, I slid out my arm from him so he would stay asleep. And luckily that worked.
Right.
He slept on the couch. And then it began. He attacked me. So all I could think at the time was, like, in my mind, I was like, what do I say to make him stop? And so I was like, I'm pregnant again. That blurted out, which I wasn't, but I just blurted out, and he goes, I don't care. And so that didn't work. And then all of a sudden, a profound knowing comes to me. It's like a voice. It's weird because I hear it in my head, and it's not my voice. And it says to me, don't worry, you're not dying today. And for some reason, I knew that was the truth. And so it got rid of all the nervousness and scaredness. And I just said, you better get me one shot, mother. And he got nervous. And he started fidgeting around, because at that point, he actually had me on my hands and knees and had the gun to the back of my head. And he pulled back the hammer on the gun when that voice kicked in. And I looked over at my son. I got all the courage I could muster, and I said that to him. And then he was like, what? And I go, what? Did I say something? Like, it just came out, And he says, walk outside, because he couldn't think of anything else to do. So I said, you think I can get some freaking clothes on first? Because by then I didn't have but my shirt on.
Right.
And he said, no. And I was like, great. And I stomped outside. Like, I am mad now because I know I'm not dying.
Right.
Right. So we're walking down the sidewalk. It's like these rows of townhouses and sidewalks next to it. We're walking outside, and he pushes the gun in my back, and he says, "Keep walking." And then I hear the sound of running, him running away. And that's when I started trembling and shaking and biting my nails and just, what do I do? So I turn around real slow and I don't see him. But then the thought pops in my mind, my house is the only one I know of at this hour that's open. So I go back in there. My son's in there. And
Yeah.
I don't check upstairs. I wasn't going to push my luck, but I checked downstairs. My son was still sound asleep. And of course, like I said, we're dirt poor. We have no phone, nothing. So I open my door. I look out. I open the screen door, ran over to my neighbor's house, yelled through her mail slot, screamed her name, and beat on her door until she answered. And then she gets on the phone, calls the police. And later I asked her, I said, "How did you know what happened?" And she said, "Well, there's been 5 this week." So,
Wow.
and I was like, I didn't even know about it. I was just living my life. And so police come, we have to go to the hospital, all that stuff happens. And then a year and a half later, we have to go to trial. It's a big ordeal.
So they caught him?
So I picked him out of a photo lineup. Then I had to pick him out of a real lineup. Then I pointed him out in court. But back in 1989, DNA testing it wasn't refined yet. So it couldn't prove without a doubt either way. So there was reasonable doubt and they let him go.
Wow.
And so my husband,
Wow.
yeah. So my husband stands up. He's a big dude. He's like 380 pounds. And he stands up and he's looking like he's like the Incredible Hulk about to lose his mind. And all the bailiffs start coming towards him. And I put my hand on his chest.
Yeah.
And I said, "You do what you need to do, but I have a child to take care of. So you can follow me out or you can go to jail." And so he lets out the biggest, and then he follows me out and we leave. Yeah. So that was very hard for him. And I know it. I know how hard it was for him.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's I always tell people that's probably a better man than me.
Well, he wanted to be with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I always tell people I like to think in those situations I would have a something that told me, hey, but yeah. I know I have this part of me that just
the rage
glazes over, especially when it comes to a family or something like that.
Well, that's why I felt the need to put my hand on him so he could be in the present moment with me, because I knew him well, and I knew if I didn't say anything, he would have done it.
Yeah.
So,
man.
So we make it through all that, which is actually pretty good because, a lot of people divorce after things like that. And we had, ups and downs, but we made it through. And then I had my second son and I started having pain and couldn't figure it out. So I go to the hospital. They send me home with Maalox and Tylenol, tell me, it was in my head. And then at age 28, I go to Johns Hopkins Hospital and they come out and they said, "We have bad news." And I said, "Okay." And they said, "You have Crohn's disease. You're obstructed and we have to do emergency surgery." And I said, "Okay." And okay. And they said, "But that's not the bad news. Bad news is you're pregnant. We have to terminate."
Wow.
So that made me angry because I kept going to the hospital and they kept sending me home and I knew something was wrong. Yeah. So I obviously, if I would have known, I wouldn't have gotten pregnant, but.
Right.
Yeah. So get through all that. They take out 14 inches of my intestine and I'm healing, And then I get deathly sick in 2000. And they kept focusing on the Crohn's. And I said, "This isn't Crohn's. Like, it's something different." I kept throwing up everything. I couldn't hold anything down, not even water. And so I am slowly losing weight. I lose 100 pounds in that year. I'm admitted 17 times for dehydration. And when I'm admitted, I'm there for 2 weeks at a time. One time it was 19
I got
days. And nobody can figure it out. And they finally did what they call an MRCP, a scope down into the pancreatic duct. And they see that it's completely collapsed. I'm getting retrograde bile, which is causing me to throw everything up. So I was on TPN or, PPN, food in a bag in my arm because I was losing so much weight.
So
So,
you were how old were you?
so that was in 2000. So let's see, 69. How old would I have been? In my 30s, right? So
My gosh.
yeah, 31 or 2, something like that.
So
So
we're three to in your 30s. It's
yeah,
just like
never
feels like
ends.
one thing after the other. My gosh.
Yeah. So then, I'm on the mend. I'm still dealing with Crohn's. I've had a few more surgeries. I've had a total of 25 surgeries altogether now. Um, we're just dealing with it. I'm trying to work. I'm not working. I'm working. I'm not working. He's constantly working. We're just trying to make our way. And then in
Right.
2006, we finally get to go on this vacation down to Florida. And we're having this great time. We got this cool Airbnb. Everything's wonderful until Ron says, I'm having this pain. And he describes it to me. And I said, well, that sounds like pancreatitis, like me. I said, wouldn't it be weird if we both had pancreatitis? When we get back home, I want you to get a scan. And he goes, okay. So we get back home, go to Johns Hopkins. They do a scan. And they said, you have pancreatic cancer. It's inoperable. And you have about 2 months to live.
Wow.
So, so I said that wasn't enough time. And we took him to the Cancer Treatment Center of America. And
Yeah.
we got a total of 10 months with him before he passed.
My gosh.
Yeah.
So
So,
yeah. So would you say, knowing that because I say this about my wife all the time, um, that it's 100% the fact that she changed, altered the course of my life in a great way,
yeah.
and honestly, one of the true best things to ever happen to me. And so after all of that trauma and that you went through, would you say that may be the worst?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I,
It was
I feel
the
like,
hardest thing I've ever had to deal with.
yeah, it's like maybe I would say maybe the first time, like that's like a piece of yourself as actually disappearing. The rest was just, you dealt with it. It's just life, and it happened, and you just dealt with it as it came.
Right.
And now this is something completely different.
Yeah. So it was for the first time in my life, I felt like, even though we had to go through that initial thing and, in early years, I was living.
Right.
Even though I was going through health issues, I was happy. He
Right.
loved me. I loved him. I was happy. We were raising kids. And then for that to be ripped away from me, I went right back into survival mode. I reverted
Yeah.
right back into my childhood. And in my child brain, it said, see, everybody does leave you. Nobody ever stays. Of
Yeah.
course, he didn't want to leave me, but, you know,
Right.
but my mind was gone. I lost my mind and I started making poor choices. I'm in a full panic. I don't know how to be by myself. So, 2 years later, I'm like, you'll do. And he didn't work.
Right.
He was not a good guy. So,
Right.
ended up divorcing him. Thank God I had the strength to do that. And then, 2014, I just kept getting sicker and sicker. It was so much trauma. I think my body just said, we can't do this anymore. And so all
Yeah.
these different diagnoses kept coming and more surgeries were coming. And I was having immense pain. And then one day I wake up and I have these spots all over my body. And then my hand has black spots on it. And my leg gets a black spot on it. And I'm in immense pain. And my son sees me. I'm on heavy meds to help me through this pain, and it's not touching it. And
Yeah.
so my son said I was moaning and crying in my sleep. And so he was like, you need to go to the hospital. And I said, I don't want to go. And he goes, you're going. So he picks me up. I have big kids. He picks me up, threw me in the truck, got me to the hospital. And the doctors are like, we've seen this in textbooks, but never in real life. And I go, great.
Wow.
So you don't know what to do. Yeah. So I spent a lot of time in the hospital, and they finally, they did biopsies and they found this disease called polyarteritis nodosa and leukocytoclastic vasculitis. And basically what was happening, the reason the pain is because it's inflammation of your veins and arteries. And so it was closing up, and every heartbeat is trying to push blood to nowhere because it's all closed up.
Right.
And so it surfaced. And it was the worst physical pain that you can imagine. And I've had 2 kids natural. It was bad. And all my other health stuff. So
it's like basically your tissue from inside was dying.
yes,
Everything was
when they
dying.
did the biopsy, they found that the what do you call that nerve? Yeah, a nerve was atrophied, completely atrophied. So
Yeah.
everything was dying. And so
Man.
2014, they say, we're going to try and buy you a year with some experimental drug, but you're probably not going to live the year. So you need to maybe look at making your final arrangements and tell your kids. So I went home and told my kids, I said, here's the deal. This is what the doctor said. And here's my final arrangements. I am going to sell this house to you or somebody else, but I'm getting a used RV. I'm hitting the road and seeing everything your father and I were supposed to see. And my youngest son said, do it, Mom. I'll buy the house. And so he was a 23-year-old homeowner.
Yeah.
And then I get this old RV. I hit the road. And that's the first time I was ever faced with myself. Woo!
Yeah.
Boy, that was scary. But I didn't know at the time that it was my healing journey. It wasn't my dying trip. The plan was I was going to find the most scenic backdrop and call the kids when it was time. But I started getting better. I started, one of my brothers who's an English teacher said, why don't you just start writing poetry or something? You write so well. And I was like, me? The one who didn't do well in school? He goes, I said, I don't know how to write poetry. And he says, no rules, just write. And so I started writing, and 32 poems came out in 6 months. And I started feeling better. I'm outside in nature. I'm getting all this out of my system, and I was like, well, I'm not dying. I guess I'll go back home. And my old psychology professor called me up, and she says, I remembered you from school, and I was hoping that, you could help us with this auction to raise awareness for the foster care system. And I go, uh-huh. And she goes, yeah, do you paint or draw or write or anything? And I said, funny thing, I've been writing poetry about it for the last 6 months. And so I went and did that auction and helped other kids like me.
There you go.
So then,
this is one of those, I feel like that would be one of the, what I call the, life warrior, moments, right? Where you don't really know, it's like the turnaround.
Yeah.
It's like the beginning of the turnaround.
And I had no idea.
And now you're helping kids that you weren't ever planning on helping. And it's like finally him going, okay, now you see, like we said, out of the darkness, you're coming now.
Yeah.
lead you to a different light.
Right.
And so, like we talked about before, I know we said this before, it was like that was supposed to be your dying trip, and it actually turned into your
Yeah.
living trip that you're still living.
Right. So I was kind of just existing until I was going to die, right? I was just existing. I just wanted to be with Ron. And, my kids are
Right.
grown. I was like, what purpose? I had no purpose. And then that happened. And then I was like, well, I guess I'm not dying. I guess I'll go back home. Well, my son had sold the house. So I had to go back to my
Surprise, surprise, mom.
yeah.
Sold the house that I bought from. Yeah.
So I had to go back to the parents that I only lived a couple years with, and it didn't go over well the first time. So I was stressed. I mean, they're great
Yeah.
people. I just, I was nervous about it. I was stressed. And
Right.
so I'm still not healed yet. And I have to have another major bowel resection. And
Yeah.
it was a 6-hour surgery that time. And I had trouble waking up. And my heart rate was 25 beats a minute. So I was fading out. And
Yeah.
this is where,
This is this is the part. This is
yeah.
what I'm, I
So
want everybody to hear. It blew my mind.
yeah, so mine too, because I had been put out many times, nothing ever happened. You wake up.
Yeah.
Well, this
Yeah.
time, I see myself laying on the bed in the hospital. I see the nurse running in. I see my mother sitting there, reading Good Housekeeping, page 42. I'll never forget
Wow.
that for some reason. And then all of a sudden, my mind is able to see both of my kids in two different states at the same time. And they're just living their life, nothing really happening, just living. And this complete understanding, like I already knew it, but it was reinforced that we as in humans and animals and everything living is all interconnected. We are all connected as one whole, and like whole consciousness, all of it is
Yeah.
connected. And I didn't question that. Like I just knew it. And then boom, I'm back in the hospital room, but I'm still kind of here and my body's laying there. And this same voice that was there the night I was attacked at gunpoint, same voice. I didn't turn to see who it was. I don't know why. But he says to me, see, life continues with or without you. Do you want back in or not? And I go, sure. And I wake up in terrible pain. so
Wow.
so that's the moment I said, okay, time to get busy living. Stop existing. Now, of
Yeah.
course, I'm still sick for quite some time. My body is not healed yet. Um,
Yeah.
and I make my way to Arkansas where my brother lives. And 2018, I'm still in terrible pain, struggling with this polyarteritis stuff. And I was smoking. I had been smoking for 30 years, and so that made it work because it's a vasoconstrictor. And so
Right.
I get referred because the doctors in Arkansas didn't know what to do with me. They didn't know, what this disease was. And so they referred me to Mayo Clinic, and I go up there and they said, we're about 2 weeks away from amputating both of your hands. And I mean, one hand, you can see it in person. You can definitely see the difference. They were turning black, and I start making jokes because that's how I deal with stuff. I learned that from Ron. Make light of it. It makes it easier.
Right.
So this doctor leans in, all serious, and he's like, do you realize we are literally 2 weeks away from amputating both of your hands? This is serious. And I lean back and I go, now what kind of Tinder profile is that going to be? Cute in the face, no hands. And he's like, you're a mess.
Right.
I said, I'm not on Tinder. I'm just saying it's not going to work. So fix it. I know it's serious.
Right.
I'm not going to cry about it,
Right.
So that's the night I went back and I was at the Airbnb. I called my son, told him what was going on. And I'm looking at my pack of cigarettes and I'm bending my hand, looking what it would look like without hands. That's how addicted I was.
Right.
And I threw out the pack of cigarettes and I was like, oh. So they put me on chemotherapy for 6 months. and lost all my hair. That's traumatic in itself.
Yeah.
And I'm sick. I'm back in Arkansas. My brother's taking care of me. We tend to do that. I took care of him. He takes care of me. We go back and forth, thank God.
Yeah.
And so I make it through 6 months of chemo, and I started making these wire tree sculptures. I didn't know I was that creative. I just started doing something with my hands because I wanted to keep the blood flow to save
Yeah.
my hands. And it worked because I got both out. So
Right.
once that happened, I was dead focused every day while I'm making the trees. I'm watching YouTube videos on how to live the RV life. And everything there is to know about RVs, everything there is to know about what apps to use, everything. And how people do it on low income because I'm disabled and I get widows, you know? And so I'm like, how
Right.
am I going to do this? So I worked it all out. And then March of 2020, I go and get my truck. And then a week later, before it hits my credit, I go and get my trailer and I hit the road 3 days later. And
Off you go.
yep. So I've been on the road for 4.5 years now, living the best possible life you could imagine for the life I had. Like the whole country is my backyard and I don't have to
Yeah.
maintain. You know,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
So, man, to me, it's like, man, and just listening to everything that you've been through your entire life, only to end up, and now, like I said, only I haven't known you very long,
Yeah.
but I always, when I talk to you, you're always positive,
Yeah.
you're always smiling, you're always laughing,
Because I get
and
to live.
it's well, and that's it. It's like, that's that life warrior spirit that all those years you knew, like you said, you had it early on when you knew that you could take whatever they had that they were ever going to give to you when
Right.
you were young. And it was like that spirit has stayed with you from through every life warrior event
Yes.
that you had. And man, and now here you are. Like I said, it's a testament to that true life warrior spirit of, man, that all of that doesn't mean that you can't be happy.
Right.
All of that trauma doesn't mean that you can't live a fulfilled life and do things that are positive and help other people.
Right.
And
But
man, so
I think we also get people sent to us to help us along, right? So I had
right,
done a lot of healing on my own, but then this past year I had a boyfriend. Um, he's now my closest friend. We decided it wasn't the right time in life, but we're still very close. And the reason for that is, I believe, that he helped me through some issues that I didn't even realize I had in relationships that came from my childhood. And it
right,
was, we pick up these survival skills. And when we don't have
right,
to survive, we're still trying to survive, and it causes issues in relationships, you know?
yeah,
And so he really helped me see that in myself. And then to have to face myself with that, I was like, oh, more work to do.
right, right,
But never think you're done. But I'm
yeah,
willing to do that work so that I can have the best possible life for myself. Because I've already had the
yeah,
bad. I want nothing but good now.
right, yeah.
So that's what I'm choosing to do. You know, I also changed my
Oh,
diet, which helped my health, to paleo
yeah,
diet.
we talked about that. Yeah, we talked about that, and I've done paleo, I've done all of it,
Yeah.
and it is that I try to tell people all the time, just that alone, that how it's hard to get healthy. It's hard to be whole
Yes.
if you can't, if you don't give yourself what you need to, for your body to heal and be whole.
Mind, body,
And
and spirit.
yeah, and so
You have to have
all
all
of
three.
this, I hope, right? My hope for everybody that listens to it is not to listen. Yeah, the trauma that you faced was awful, like we always talked about. That's your story. That's just
Yeah.
part of your story that made you who you are. But it's this part, right?
Yeah.
The positive thing, the poetry, the out of body experience, the knowing that you have to go on the road and go live this to be healthy and happy.
Yeah.
But I hope that people who listen to it listen to the whole thing. Like nutrition is
Yes.
important. I mean, how you treat yourself is important, and that's part of it,
Yeah.
and it's part of the whole healing process. And like you said, you feel like that paleo, and I've heard you say it numerous times,
Yes.
is a major part of your healing success story.
Yeah. So I was, during that time, when I was very in a lot of pain, I was on a walker for a long time. I
Yeah,
couldn't, I had neuropathy in my left leg. I don't have that anymore. And I'm
yeah,
telling you, the paleo diet, the reason I say that, it's very good for autoimmune disease because it gets rid of all
yeah,
the inflammation from foods that we eat, right? So sugar is,
right,
it's feeding the inflammation. So when you're prone to inflammation, having autoimmune from traumas and all that,
right.
you're feeding the inflammation. And I used to literally have a running joke for years that little Debbie's make big Debbie's. Trust me, I know.
Right.
Because I was
Yeah,
just,
that's 100% true.
I look
100% true.
completely different than I used to look. I was always very
Well,
big, steroided up.
right.
Yep.
So, and that's important too. I'm sure we talked about it, and I talk about this all the time. How uh, conventional medicine it's not made to heal you.
No.
Hospitals are no longer made to heal you. Really,
Yes.
med school and doctors and all that. It's not about healing you. It is about
Money.
figuring out what drug they need to give you, what drug they need to give you,
Yeah.
and you're a prime example of it. Like
Well,
you've been through the system,
oh, yes. So I was the sixth
and
person in Maryland to get Remicade infusions when it first came out. It gave me medication induced lupus. I was
there you
like,
go.
what? So then once I was off of it, I think it took almost a year. Once I got off of that, the lupus went away because I thought I was
There you go.
doomed to have lupus. And there was other
Right.
drugs that gave me other conditions that I never had
Yeah.
before, you know? And I just told them, I've had 4 ports. I've had two here, two here. I've had all kinds of stuff. I was getting monthly infusions. I was on 32 pills a day. I am now on 2 prescription meds, and that is it. I used to have
Yeah.
to give myself biologics, all kinds of stuff. And I'm on
Yeah.
2 pills a day, and I take vitamins on top of that. Right. So and I try, it started slow. It started slow when I first hit the road. I would walk around the camp loop and I was like, okay, that's all I can do today. And then it was 2 times around. Then it was 3 times. Then I was like, ooh, there's a trail. Maybe I should check that out. It just gradually over time, I just kept plugging away.
Yeah.
For somebody that was on a walker or bedridden, I was bedridden for 3 months. And here I
Yeah.
am. My doctor, this is what blew my mind talking about what they do is I went into my physician's office and he's a GI doctor, for your gastrointestinal. And
Right.
he walks in and he sees a dramatic change in me. I had dropped 60 pounds in 4 months. And he goes, "What have you done different?" And I said, "Just changed my whole life. I changed to the paleo diet." And he goes, "I'll have to check into that." And I said, "You're a GI doctor. How do you not know?"
There you go. That's it. There you go.
What?
Prime example, right? Prime
Yeah.
example that doctors don't know it all.
No,
And you know, eh, wow.
it's
And
crazy.
so, yeah, you healed yourself.
Mind,
And
body, and
man,
spirit. Yep.
there you go. And so, well, man, what a good.
It's choices.
I still,
It's literally, like I
I know,
said
yeah,
before, it's perspective and choices. I could literally perceive my life as, and I did for a while, the worst of the
right,
worst. Who, how much
yeah,
more can someone take? I used to say that, and I'll never forget the time, and I do want to share this. I was in the hospital with all that pain, and a nurse knew me because I was coming in and out. And she said to me, she goes, "You ever ask why me?" And she goes, "You suffer so much." And I said, "Why not me? Who else has the training to deal with this? Like, if
yeah,
somebody has to go through it, it should be me, to let people know
yeah,
you can get through it and choose a better
right,
life for yourself.
yeah,
You just got to
yeah,
decide."
yeah. I've said that. I use that all the time. It's like, you know, why me? And you realize if you really pay attention, like if you have, like you said, if if you have a little common sense and you actually think for a minute, stop and think, the more you say that, why me, why me, why me,
Right.
it's a truly negative statement that you're uttering over and over again. And it's almost like
Yeah.
it just compounds it and makes it worse and worse and worse. I
You
was
were.
the same. It was like, I finally was like, I'm tired of asking that question. I'm sick of asking it because you don't ever get an answer. It's a question you never get an answer to.
So,
And whatever answer you get is never positive.
right.
So it's now it's that. Why
So
not me?
the thing is you will always believe, no matter who you have in your life, you will always believe what you tell yourself. You will
Yeah,
always believe. So if you are constantly in the negative, then your life is
yeah,
negative. Your mind is negative.
yeah.
Your body is negative. If you start telling yourself you're going to make it through, you're going to have the best life, you're going to do it despite what they say, then you will. You have to
It's
do it.
yeah, manifestation used to be something I just thought was crazy and
Uh-uh.
never didn't really wasn't real and all of that. And but now, man, I look back on my life, especially when it comes to like in my sports, my baseball life in the day.
Yeah.
I got convinced at an early age, early on. I, I was confident in what I could do, and because of some bad actors in my life that wanted to convince me that I wasn't, and I let it sink in. And it wasn't until I switched over to, oh, well, let me just show you. Let me just show you,
Yep.
and use that as a motivation, right? And then I started speaking it into like I'm just going to show you. Let me just show you,
Yeah.
and that's exactly what. And that was the first time ever where I was like, hell, I just now you had to go work. That doesn't mean you can just say it and it's going to happen.
Right.
You have to put in effort too. Yeah,
Yeah.
say it and then go work it. Then go work,
So
right?
I
And
I think for me, what helped me through was changing my mental state. I just started
yeah,
writing 3 things that I was grateful for every morning, right? With my coffee. It was
yeah,
like a routine I set for myself. And it started simple because I had no idea. And I was like, I'm grateful for this cup of coffee. I'm grateful for this recliner I'm sitting in. It was simple stuff. And then it turned
yeah,
into huge, long paragraphs of truly all the things you start seeing that you are grateful for. And I did a lot of, I guess they call it mirror work. I didn't know that that was a thing. I just remembered I never looked in mirrors as a kid, right? I just never did. And then I
yeah,
put a mirror in my RV. And when I'd walk by, I'd come back and I go, "Oh, look at you go." I'd say something nice to myself.
right, yeah,
And it was like,
yeah,
huh, I'm feeling better. It's
yeah,
just little things that you can do for yourself to help
Yeah.
you even just for the day. Sometimes, things are happening and you can allow that whole day to be ruined, or you can say, you know what? Okay, we're just going to take it as it comes. Right now, I'm fine. Right now, look at my
Yeah.
scenery, whatever. Find something positive, and that's what I choose to do because more times than not, I have the best days now that
Yeah.
anybody could dream of. You know, I've gotten to see amazing places. I have like 6 states left to see, and that's
Yeah.
it. Like I have the best life, and it's all
Yeah.
because. Go ahead.
I told my daughter this the other day. I went and picked her up from a friend's house, and she's 15, and it's all skincare and hair and the whole. And she gets in the car and she's immediately opens the mirror and she's looking at her face and she's got maybe a pimple or something on her face and she's like, oh, and I'm like, what is the deal? And she's like, I hate the way I look right now, and she says that quite a bit. I don't think she knows it.
Yeah.
And my wife says stuff to herself sometimes. And like I said, I get it because I'm a weightlifter. I've been in this fitness thing for a long time, and even I know as a 54-year-old, compared to most, I'm in
Yeah.
great shape. But for me, it's not ideal for what I want, right? And so I get it. But we had this conversation, and I tell him that, and I heard this from a lady. I don't know if you ever follow her. Her name's Torchy Swinson. I don't know, she's 83 or 84. You look her up on TikTok. She's from West Texas, living in West Texas. She she's got like 700,000 followers now. And her thing is when she comes on, she's like, she lives in a facility, like a assisted living place.
Hmm.
And she always starts her stuff off by saying, I want to tell you something. And so it wasn't long ago, she came on, she said, I want to tell you something. Stop talking bad about yourself. Stop saying, looking in the mirror saying, I look terrible. I'm fat. I'm
Yep.
ugly. Don't do that to yourself. It's because what you say
You
is what you
believe.
believe. The more you speak it into existence.
Mm-hmm.
And she made a point, and this is what I told my daughter and my wife both. She said, you have your best friend in the world. Would you say to your friend, your best friend, you look ugly today. You're fat. You look fat.
Yeah.
You just look terrible. Would you ever say that to your best friend?
Right.
And the answer is no. And she's like, then why would you say that to yourself? Why would you ever do
And
that to your own self?
that's right.
And so that was part of it. It's like you have to stop speaking negativity into your own existence
And also
because it's a
realize,
manifestation thing.
yeah, and also realize it takes so many more, I don't remember the number, but it takes a whole lot more positive comments to take away the one negative. So you
Right.
might as well start with a positive and
Yeah.
forget the negative, you know,
Right.
that because
And you
you're
can't
just
tell me.
digging a hole.
Yeah. And I that's where I believe it's a spiritual thing, that man, negativity is dark and it takes hold real fast.
Oh, I know.
And like you said, and it takes so much more positive to get rid of it.
See,
And
I think the funny part about my story is it shocked me at first when people would say, "Gosh, you're just so happy," and all. I was like, "Do they know me?" Like because for years, I never had a smile. I looked either angry or sad. Those were my two faces
yeah,
forever until this
yeah,
happened. And now it's like I literally take second looks at myself because it shocks me still that I am smiling and that I'm truly happy and I radiate that now. People want
yeah,
to know me. They want to be around me. I never had that before until I chose
yeah,
to change myself.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
amazing.
Well, and you attract what you put out, and
Yeah.
man, if you're negative, and angry and mad and sad and
Yep.
all that all the time, then that's exactly what the people you're going to be around. And
Yeah.
so
And
it's like,
Ron was the one person, I mean, he even dedicated a song to me called She Doesn't Know She's Beautiful. Like, I literally
yeah,
didn't know that. Like, inside.
yeah,
I did
yeah,
not know that about myself, but he saw it. Even despite all
yeah,
my sadness and stuff, he saw it in me and gave me that little
yeah,
mustard seed of hope. So,
yeah. There you go,
yeah,
man. Well, um, man, what great, a lot of great positive life warrior messages. And the cool thing is us talking about this, and I hope this is exactly what happens to everybody listening. We've been talking for the last probably 5-10 minutes about all the positive stuff, the
yeah,
manifestation, and all the living the happy life.
yeah.
And in that time, I have completely forgot about all the stuff, the bad stuff that you told before.
Me
I
too.
mean, and but which is like to me, it just now it hit me like I haven't even thought about all that now. All that's
Yeah,
gone, and this is the example that the reason I started this whole thing in the first place.
yeah,
This is the example, right? Of you went through everybody goes through some shit, and you and I've had this conversation where I was like, man, mine isn't even anything compared to yours.
yeah.
And you were like, well, everybody's trauma is their own.
Right.
Yours was just as traumatic as mine to you. And that made sense.
Yeah.
And so
Well, if you
but
think about it, I mean, truly think about that. Like I had said in the live one time, if someone has a charmed life, right, and everything's wonderful, and they have their best friend, their dog, and their dog dies one day, that is extremely traumatic to them. As to
yeah,
where my life was, okay, another trauma, it sucked, but it's another
yeah,
trauma, and I'm used to it. So it's not as
right,
traumatic as that incident, right? So I
yeah,
don't believe
yeah,
that in that, oh, your story's worse than mine, because that might have been more traumatic to you than all of, well, maybe all of mine um,
right,
together, you know? So you can't judge people that way.
right. Yeah. So like I said, this to me, it's like this is the example of exactly why I started this. I wasn't sure where it was going to go when I started this whole thing. I just knew that, like I said, that one day, kind of like you said, that voice came to me. It was like, hey, dummy, do
You're
you
called.
do you hear that word? You hear that word you keep saying, that life warrior? It's like, how many times are you going to say that before that clicks?
Yeah.
That's it. That's what you're. And so, like I said, it's
We're,
cool
sup-
because this is the
we're
example.
supposed to help each other, not harm each other.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening in
Right.
the world right now. And we need to help each other. Because
Right.
everybody, honestly, everybody wants to live a good life. Everybody wants to be
Oh,
happy.
yeah.
They don't
Right.
want to do harm. They just are products of their environment or products of their life. And I could have easily
Yeah.
been one of those. You know,
Right.
I could have used that as my excuse, or I could have chosen to help people
Yeah.
because we're just trying to live. We just want to be happy,
Right.
you know?
Well, I know you're writing a book,
Yeah.
and you said you completed chapter 2.
Yep.
So whenever this thing gets done, I look forward to reading it.
Yeah.
Even though I've got the story, but I know there's a whole lot more.
Yeah.
Uh,
More detail.
so right. Um, and I can't wait to pass it on along for everybody, and honestly, just because I know you're going to put the positive spin
Oh, yes.
on stuff in there.
So
That's
I
to
was
me,
going to write
that's the
this. I was going to write this book a while back, and apparently I wasn't in the healed part of myself yet, so it wasn't the right time. And now I'm finally in the right
yeah,
headspace to do it so that I can show the positive. I can spread the
yeah,
hope. because before it would
Yeah.
have just been sad story, you know?
Right.
And I
Right.
want more of a inspirational story.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it is that for me. It's really cool to have you on, and again, I don't think anything happens by chance. That
Yeah.
you came on live, and uh, and now even in my lives, just like last night, you know, it's almost like a team effort now. When people come on, it's you know, there's not many people that can come on now and give a story, and somebody that's already in there hasn't lived it or hasn't
Right.
experienced something like it to where they can go, no, I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
And if I don't know, Deb knows, or Amanda knows,
Right.
or some Clayton knows, or they know because they're going through what you went through.
Right.
And so that's what I think is cool about this Life Warrior thing, and why I believe it's gonna eventually, it's just gonna take hold, and we're gonna be everywhere.
Yeah.
And man, that'll be cool to see. And I think it's like you said, this is exactly what we need. I told my friend yesterday, this friend of mine that's going through problems, right?
Yes.
I said, the one thing that this has done, just that whole thing, is somebody cared enough to call me. I had to put my head on and go, okay, well, who can I call that can help get this thing rolling? I make one phone call. Next thing you know, that guy is there looking after him.
Yeah.
We got couple other guys coming in too. And now in just a short period of time, because 8, 9, 10 people actually give a shit, this guy's life is now changed and better just like that.
Yep.
And so
We need
it
support
gives
and
me
help.
it gives me a little hope that maybe this world isn't as bad as they tell you it is on the media.
It is
Maybe
not.
there's
And
a
I
lot more.
travel.
There's a lot more of this.
Yeah. And I travel all over this country. And I've been doing it for 4.5
Yeah,
years. It is nowhere
yeah,
near as bad as what you think it is portrayed on the phone, on your TV. It is nowhere near that because I meet so many wonderful people out in this
yeah,
world. And, they all have stories and they all want to be heard and they're all seeking
yeah.
happiness.
And this is why Ann and I have talked about. I think doing Life Warrior on the road is a great thing.
Yes.
Getting a trailer, put all the stuff in there, and just set up different places, and
Yep.
just asking people, hey, tell you, like, hey, stop by real quick and just give me a little Life Warrior story, that kind of stuff, to where maybe that message can get out there.
I
Hey,
can tell you
see,
some places to go for that.
there you go.
Where
There
the
you go.
nomads congregate.
Yeah. Right. Right. So, well, all right, Deb. Well, man, thank you for telling your story and
No problem.
being a positive spin on it in the end. I'm super happy to have met you and
Thank you.
got to know you, and super proud of what you accomplished, and a little bit jealous because you're living in foreign places and I'm stuck here in
It's a
one place right
choice.
now. But
It's a choice.
so we're working on it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Remember
we got to
last
get this.
night? Remember last night in the live you were asking somebody what their name was? And it's my famous
Yeah,
saying. I say it all the time. Where there's a will, there is a way.
yeah,
I
yeah,
had the will and I found the way.
yeah. Well, we got a 15-year-old daughter that we got to
Oh yeah.
figure out.
It's not that much
And
longer
then
though.
no, 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 it'll happen fast,
Yeah.
and we'll
So
see, we'll
enjoy.
see.
Yeah.
So y'all please pass this message along. Like and subscribe to the YouTube page,
And share.
and and share it as much as you can, because these are the messages that need to get out to people, because there's a lot of people, just like Deb said, she was in those homes with kids, younger kids like her, And there's a lot of them
Yeah.
that people don't
All over the
know it's
world.
happening, out of sight, out of mind. And so there's a lot of people like her probably would listen to this kind of stuff that need to hear the message too.
Yeah.
So pass it along as much as y'all can. But again, thank y'all.
Thank you for
Deb,
having
thank you. And we'll get this thing put on there tonight so the message can get out.
me. Wonderful. Thank you.
All right, y'all. Y'all remember, like I always say, tomorrow y'all wake up and go do Life Warrior shit.
That's right.
All right, y'all. Thanks again. We will see
Bye.
y'all next time.